Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old school classics to new school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Glad you can make it. This week we're joined once again by pop culture extraordinaire Jack Lugo, and we're going to be talking about the most anticipated film of the year, and that would be Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So sit back, relax, grab your drink, step on into the Juke Joint.
So let's get right into this. We're discussing Rogue One this week, and I guess this is going to be like filled with spoilers, Jack. I mean, there's really no way to discuss this.
Yeah, we should definitely put a spoiler warning out right now. You know, if you're listening and you haven't seen Rogue One, definitely stop listening and then come back and listen to the podcast.
Because there's plenty of other videos or podcasts out there that probably have non-spoiler talks, but we're going to get deep and dirty. And I think right off the bat, I just probably want to ask you what your overall impression was. If someone said to you on the train tomorrow, on the bus or whatever, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I saw Rogue One. What did you think? What would you say?
Fantastic. I wish I can get a time machine and go back to 1999 when Phantom Menace premiered and just grab myself before entering the theater and and take myself to see Rogue One. It was phenomenal. I was highly impressed, and I went in there with low expectations. So I heard some of the buzz prior to going in, but I wasn't prepared for how much I was going to like it, and I really did like it.
Yeah, I have to agree. My expectations weren't super high because, let's face it, we really weren't vested in any of these characters per se. I mean, we all knew Vader was in it, and we were all waiting for the Vader appearance. And believe me, we will talk about that later. But we just knew the overall plot of the film was about the Rogue Squadron, who is essentially stealing plans to blow up the Death Star. That's really what this movie was about, and it was conceived to be something of a war film. Correct?
Correct. I mean, it's actually 2 out of the first 3 paragraphs from the opening crawl of A New Hope are about this story that we don't see. That takes place off screen up until now. So, I mean, obviously everyone's curious about what they're going to do with this, and I think they really hit the ball. I think they really hit a high mark on this.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, whoever came up with the idea of making a film about stealing the plans for the Death Star should be up for, canonization of nerd sainthood.
Definitely. I totally agree.
All right, so let's get into a couple of Easter eggs, because you know what? There's a million Easter eggs in this thing.
There are.
And, I mean, you could always take a deep dive into these things, but, I'm just going to give you a couple of mine, but I want to hear a couple of yours first, your favorite Easter egg.
Well, the first one that had me smiling a bit was when they go to the marketplace in Jeddah and you see the 2 aliens. I think their names are Evanson and Ponda Baba, who end up in Mos Eisley in A New Hope, and they have the confrontation with Luke and Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan ends up cutting one of their hands off, arms off. So it definitely that made me smile when I was going.
And you know what? That guy was still an asshole. He was an asshole in this movie, and he was an asshole in A New Hope.
Yeah, he's just perpetually an asshole, and that's great. I was glad to see him be an asshole.
Did you catch the blue milk?
Yes, I caught the blue milk. That was something I noticed too. And just I wasn't even sure going in because I tried to stay away from spoilers. I wasn't sure if Jimmy Smits was going to be in. That was definitely something I was impressed with too. Just I know they probably could have done the movie without him, but it made sense that he would be there.
Yeah, and when I saw Jimmy Smits, I was like, oh, awesome. They got him. They got
Yeah.
Jimmy Smits. It's like little touches like this were really were peppered throughout the entire film. And I just have to say, did you catch the little stormtrooper doll that I think it was in the first maybe 15, 20 minutes? There was a little
Yes.
stormtrooper stuffed doll.
Yeah, that Jin is carrying, and she drops, and a stormtrooper picks it up. Yeah, that was a really nice touch as well.
And of course, the reference to Ben Kenobi. We all caught that. I mean, I once had a Jedi friend, or Princess Leia's stepdad actually made reference to Ben Kenobi, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that was nice as well. Yeah, I mean there are a whole bunch of
There
Easter
was a
eggs.
million
It's
of them,
it's
and here's one that I didn't really pick up on because I have to admit I'm not the ultimate Star Wars geek. I'm I wouldn't say a casual fan. I'm a fan, but I'm not an ultimate geek. But did you catch? And this is what I was told. And when the squadron was kind of doing their thing at the end, and it looked like all hell was breaking loose. Red 1, Red 2, Red 3, Red 4, Red 5. They were all the same guys.
Yes, actually they CG they found some footage from Well, it wasn't called A New Hope back
Right,
then
right,
in 1977,
right.
but the director Gareth Edwards,
Edwards.
he I guess was at Skywalker Ranch, and he came across this footage, and he was like, "Can I use it?" And that included these fighter pilots, footage of these fighter pilots that wasn't used, and he just sort of refitted it to for it to make sense for this battle on at Scarif. So yeah, definitely they really put a lot of heart and soul into
They
this.
really, really did. And how cool was it that we saw Red 5 get blown to bits? Okay, when Red 5 gets blown to bits, we all know that, boom, lo and behold, who becomes Red 5 in A New Hope?
Luke
Luke.
Luke
Luke
Skywalker.
Skywalker. So, yeah, man, I mean, I really loved seeing all of these things just kind of come together. It made perfect, everything gelled, man. Everything jived, and I'm watching this and I'm like, all right, what does Disney get that George Lucas doesn't and didn't for those first three films, those prequels?
I think it might be something as simple as there was no one around to tell George Lucas no, to say, you know what, it's not a good idea to have Jar Jar Binks in Phantom Menace. Maybe create a different character, or fix the character so this way it's not as obnoxious. Yeah, and just the way those prequels were sort of set up. I feel like they could have. Phantom Menace was just a superfluous film. They could have combined some of the events of Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones into one film, and then Revenge of the Sith. I've always maintained is a necessary film, and
Mm-hmm.
it accomplished what it needed to do, even if it's not the greatest Star Wars film in the world. But I think there was a way to sort of compress the plot points that take place between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones into one movie, and instead because they wanted to make it a trilogy, there was no one around to say, George, this isn't working, and I think that's what happened with those prequels. With Disney, I think that they have. I mean, it may on the surface it may seem kind of cold and impersonal because it's obviously they have marketing people
Mm-hmm.
and all these professionals looking at this and trying to get it just right. But in the end, what they're trying to do is give the fans what they want. So it's sort of yeah, I think with Disney, the reason they're getting it right is because they have people who are going to bounce ideas off each other, and there's no one person who's going to say, you know what, I'm right, we're doing it this way, even if it's foolhardy.
Well, even if you look at what they're doing with Marvel, everything in the Marvel universe is jiving, and I think they know story unlike anyone in Hollywood. I think no one in Hollywood knows story better than Disney. Uh, Even if you went, and now I digress just slightly, but you've been to the parks, and
Yeah.
you know, everything involved in with every attraction in those parks has a backstory. Everything has a backstory. Everything they are so concerned with story, and I think with Rogue One, this is just showing, in spades. Let's talk a little bit about Jyn Erso, the heroine of Rogue One. What were your thoughts? And when you're finished, I'm gonna actually relay a conversation that I had with a friend of mine over the weekend. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, she's the protagonist that I think we've needed in the Star Wars universe and for a while. I mean, she, even though you don't have any sort of instant connection to her where she fits into the saga, she's instantly sympathetic. You see her as a little girl, and you see how she's orphaned, and or at least her mother is killed and her father is taken away, and you sympathize with her. I mean, she becomes a sympathetic character almost instantly. And then when you see her later on, after when she's an adult, I think you sort of get where she's coming from. She's very relatable. I think that's something that they've needed in the Star Wars universe for a while.
Yeah, we should say before we go on any further that her father uh, is basically the architect of the Death Star,
Correct. Yes.
and he puts in this failsafe because at heart he knows what the Empire is doing is wrong. They're rebels at heart, and he put in this like this failsafe, this way to destroy the Death Star. Um, did I like Jyn Erso? That's a really good question. You know, I loved Rey from last year's film, Force Awakens. There was something about Rey that I think was like a burst of sunshine in that weird dark universe. Um, this maybe because this was a darker movie at heart. Um, but let me explain to you this situation, this conversation I had with a friend of mine. I,
Yeah.
I asked him if he was going to go see the Rogue One, and he's kind of down on the whole Star Wars thing now. And this is a guy who grew up. He's like us. Grew up watching these movies. He hated the Force Awakens. Absolutely hated it for reasons that you've heard before. It's just a rehash of A New Hope and blah blah blah. And he told me flat out that he was sick of seeing 19 or 20-year-old female protagonists in the Star Wars universe. And he was kind of pissed off that, he said, do we have to have another British 19-year-old girl as the hero of this film? And I said, well, the heroine is for young girls who can look up to someone, and then it's for young boys who can look at her and say, wow. I think from a marketing standpoint, it makes perfect sense. But like, what are your thoughts about that? What do you think of having another female protagonist, one after the other?
Well, I think it works. I like Jyn Erso better than Ray. It might be because we don't know enough about Ray, because although we have our suspicions about where she fits in into the saga, we don't. I just find myself sympathizing with Jyn Erso
Hmm.
more. I'm not sure why. I mean, yeah, like you said, they did do two female protagonists back to back. But for some reason, I think I just feel like they got it right with Jyn Erso, because I that first act where you see her as a child, what she went through, and then you also see her sort of evolving as a character, sort of, when she decides to really join the rebellion and sort of, carry out what her father's wishes would have been for her. There was a little bit more of an evolution there than I think for Rey, even though Rey goes through something similar. But that might change, obviously, because we have two more films to go with Daisy Ridley as Rey. So there's just with Rey, I think there's more of an air of mystery around her, and we, until we find out for sure, what her origins are. It's hard to kind of place her. I mean, I did enjoy Daisy Ridley's performance, but I think I enjoyed Felicity Jones more.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Felicity Jones, who is an Oscar-nominated actress, let's just throw that out there. It was a lot more multi-layered.
Correct. Yes, that's what I was looking for.
Exactly, because this is a self-contained film, and I think it's easier to be multi-layered when you have a self-contained film. And you make a good point. There's still so much about Rey we haven't seen, we don't know, and the character she is going to become. So I agree.
Just one. Because when she's captured and she uses those kind of the force mind control trick on the stormtrooper, that was a fun thing to see. But then you're kind of wondering, how did she get that? Where did she get that from? How did she know that she can do that? We don't really know the answers to that yet. With Felicity Jones as Jyn, she's more, because it's a self-contained film, what you see is what you get, and you kind of, I just found her more relatable, and where she ends up, from where she begins to where she ends up, and where her character, the fate of the character, I think it's just something I thought I found a lot more compelling than what we have with Rey so far, though that, like I said, that might change.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yes.
A lot of people thought Grand Moff Tarkin would appear in the film briefly, perhaps as a hologram, but when Grand Moff Tarkin shows up basically in the flesh, this guy was in the movie. Yeah, but he had lines in the movie and tons of scenes. I mean, holy shit! I couldn't believe what I was watching.
I couldn't believe it either. There was a couple. There are a couple articles out there that kind of view this in a negative light, beyond just the obvious repercussions of using a dead actor, but because the CGI, because they're using CGI. I didn't. It didn't bother me too much, but it did. It does take you out of the movie a little bit, because that's not Peter Cushing in front of you.
Well, there's also that holy shit aspect, oh my God, look what they're doing. And you're thinking that you're not really paying attention at this point. You're just now kind of fixated on his face and how did they do that? And oh my God, it looks so much. It looks great. Oh my God, what's next? Are they going to resuscitate, XYZ? You're right. It can take you out of the film. And I saw a lot of that same coverage where people were kind of pissed off, saying that it was kind of disrespectful to Peter Cushing. I personally didn't see it that way. I kind of feel it was for the greater good of the entire series. The CGI did the character justice, correct?
I think so, but I think they could have done with maybe one less scene. I think they might have overused it a little too much. But like I said, I walked out of there loving the film. So, but I think there was a way that they could have done it so that it wasn't overused. And I think it kind of verged on getting overused with this film.
Right. Let me ask you a quick question about the look of the film. Now, I have to be honest. At one point, I thought I was seeing the 3D version, and then I realized it wasn't the 3D version. There were 3D glasses on the counter where, I was at an AMC dine-in theater, so I didn't know what was going on for like the first 30, 40, 50 seconds. But once I realized it was non-3D, I had to check my glasses to see if I was wearing my old glasses because, I felt the print and the look of this film was kind of soft and dull. Now, well, let me explain what I mean by that. You know, uh, Things to me didn't look rich, and I think this was on purpose. I mean, this was a dirty, gritty war film. The stormtroopers were scuffed beyond belief. We never saw a Star Wars movie where the stormtroopers were all scuffed up.
Yeah.
But by the same token, everything felt very muted to me. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. There is a different tone to the visual look of the film. And like you said, I think it was on purpose. I don't think Gareth Edwards wanted the film to look like a traditional Star Wars film. And that was probably a way to distinguish this film from the films in the main saga. But I think visually, I mean, I get what you're saying, but also you could also see how it sort of complements the films that we've already seen,
Hmm.
and like it doesn't try to sort of rip off the way the other films look, and obviously it is very distinct, and yeah, it is different, but I think it's. I don't think it's a negative. I
Hmm.
actually think I actually like the way the film looked.
Sure. And letting people know out there that there is no opening crawl. People are either pro opening crawl or they're for it or against it. To me, can see not having an opening crawl in these Star Wars stories. It's not part of the main film, so to speak. What do you think about that? Do you think this film should have had an opening crawl?
No, no. I think the opening call should be for the saga films only. These anthology films, which I guess that's what they're calling them.
Right.
I think they're standalone, and you sort of know what you're going to see going into it. You don't really need that much exposition at the beginning of the film. Whereas in
Right.
the main saga films, like with the New Hope, obviously there's some stuff that goes on
Hmm.
before off screen that they want you to be aware of. And with each film, that's what the opening crawl serves as a purpose for. I don't think you really need that with the anthology films because if you're a Star Wars fan, and even if you're just a casual fan and
Hmm.
you're not, as much of a geek as we are, you sort of know what you're getting.
And by the way, do you remember those opening crawls in episode one, two, and three? Like they made no sense.
Oh yeah, yeah, the Galactic, yeah, the first, especially the first one,
Oh my
Phantom Menace, the opening
God.
crawl, that itself can put you to sleep. I mean,
And it's funny we're talking
it's
about crawls, but if you remember the crawl in The Force Awakens, I read that a couple times. That's a great crawl because you know
yeah,
what? It pumped you up. The first sentence was Luke Skywalker is missing. Oh my God, what a setup!
yeah. I mean, it definitely grabs you, right?
Without a doubt. And again, I think there was seamless. Even though you said this was an anthology film, and apart from the saga, that said, there was seamless integration from this movie to Episode 4. I mean, I'm going to tell people right now that this film ends right before Episode 4 begins, like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I sat down and I watched episode 4 today, actually, just to, I mean, because I watched this on Friday, a couple days ago,
Hmm.
Rogue One, and then I just had, wanted to just have that effect of, having Rogue One fresh in my mind, and then watching Episode 4, and it does seamlessly just kind of go in to the beginning of A New Hope, which I mean is incredible.
It
It's just
was
I
beautiful. It was
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I suspected that they were going to do something like that, but I wasn't sure to what extent they would go. And the endpoint that they chose, which I don't know if you want to get into right now, but with Leia getting the plans and the one line that she has, and even though unlike the Peter Cushing, that didn't take me out of the movie. I don't know if it was like that for you. I mean,
Well, it's funny because I'm going to backtrack slightly because now we have to talk about Vader and the Vader scene.
yeah,
Let's just say that, Darth Vader has a scene at the end of Rogue One where he just kicks all sorts of ass. And, and I'm not just talking about, merely choking people. I mean, he just goes full Vader, lightsaber, just killing people. Okay. That happens right before the rebels get their plans, and the plans they get handed to Princess Leia, and we see the CGI Princess Leia. And let me just say that I kind of figured my guess for this that was we were going to see Princess Leia like from behind, and she was going to just kind of be bending over, giving him into R2D2. I had no idea we were going to see a CGI Princess Leia, even with her one sentence, hope. I that didn't take me out. I think the audience was just so stoked to see that familiar face. And not necessarily, a familiar face like Peter Cushing, but one of the main, the big three, so to speak. And that really kind of just jazzed everyone in the theater. And then boom, it went into the main title. And thank God they played that main title. That was the main title, that was their end title, the end title, I should say. And that really ended the film on a spectacular note.
Yeah, same. I totally agree. I mean, like you said, I wasn't expecting to see CGI Leia, but I kind of suspected Leia would figure into it somehow, like you said, either a view from behind or some sort of strategic angle where you sort of see her. I wasn't expecting to see a full-on close-up of Leia, and have her recite a line.
Really? That was weird, right? Wasn't that weird? You saw the buns on the side of her head, and it was like, oh my God, is that? It's like Carrie Fisher, but holy shit. So CGI is coming a long way, dude. And I remember, 10, 15 years ago, they tried to play around with replicating humans with CGI. It just didn't work. But I think they're getting there. I think we're about 7, 8, 9 years away from from seeing someone like Elvis Presley or Humphrey Bogart on the screen again. I'm telling you.
Marlon Brando do another Godfather prequel.
Yeah, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Let's real quick talk about the droids for a second.
Yeah.
This is the second droid, K2SO, who is the second droid in that we've seen in the past 2 years, who really, steals our hearts and steals the show. Right?
Yeah, I think these two, Force Awakens and this, I think established a couple. Because I really like BB-8. He kind of comes from the tradition of R2D2.
Right. I love BB-8. BB-8 was like adorable. He was like a little puppy, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then K2SO, same. I mean, you kind of see. I mean, he's. I mean, the way. C3PO, he kind of reminds me a little bit of C3PO if he had more of he's more of a spunky kind of.
Well, he's got sarcasm and balls.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike 3PO, yeah. I fell in love with K2SO, and if you want to talk about the way he went out,
man,
that was something. I mean,
I haven't been that sad to see sort of like a non-human go out like that since Wilson in Castaway. telling you.
Yeah, yeah, same here. Like we've been saying, Disney has been getting this so right, and I that's something I was not expecting to. I mean, obviously, we can get to it. We'll get to it later with all the characters. When they all meet they all meet their fates. But yeah, to introduce a character like K2SO and to kill him off. I mean, and in a heroic way that didn't overdo it. I think there would have been some sort of temptation, like if I was doing it, to kind of give him like a really cool like monologue just as before
Right.
he expires. He just went out, doing his thing and protecting Jin and Cassian, and just shooting stormtroopers, and he didn't have this extreme close up where they could have like milked it for a little more if they wanted to be melodramatic. They just kind of went ahead and just did it full on. And I love that they did that.
Exactly, and I think that the theater I was in, they really felt bad when you saw the light in his eyes just kind of like go dark, and his head just kind of falls to the ground. People were touched by that. They liked that guy. Let's real quick before we talk about the rest of the troops in Rogue One. Let's talk about Ben Mendelsohn for a minute, who is the villain here. And he was basically tasked with building this Death Star, overseeing the building of the Death Star. He reports to Grand Moff Tarkin, obviously, but this guy was kind of complex. I mean, look, all of the Empire villains are kind of like dickish in a way, you know what I mean? They have like their British accents, and they're all like kind of stodgy, but this is a guy who just wanted credit for what he did. And I understand there's a whole backstory to this guy, and there's novels and the Star Wars canon that goes into it a lot deeper. Like I said, I'm not a super geek, but what did you think of Ben Mendelsohn's performance?
Like you said, he's a little bit more complex. He's not the same kind of two-dimensional like background kind of villains. Like I like that they gave him a little depth, that he had some motivations, other than just to be evil.
Right.
He was. I thought Ben Mendelsohn really played the character well. I think it was. I think they did a really good job, just sort of giving the character like in a sense you sort of almost feel bad for him at the end, because
Right.
Grand Moff Tarkin takes all the credit, obviously we know in A New Hope, it's almost as if he's the one kind of in
Right.
charge of the Death Star, and obviously this was, even though we know in the real world that this story didn't exist back then. It just sort of, as you're kind of reflecting on it now, it's like, well, wow, Grand Moff Tarkin was a real dick. He kind of took credit for this guy's idea, even though it was a terrible idea, obviously, to
Right.
destroy planets. But yeah.
All right. Well, as we wind down, let's real quick talk about the fate of the squadron. Now, this really was like a war film, dude, because I wasn't prepared. This is like Band of Brothers. I have to be honest. I was not prepared to see all of these guys bite the dust. I mean, they all bit the dust, man.
Yeah, and for this to happen with Disney in charge, I mean, that's
Right.
something I would never imagine. Because when I first heard Disney was taking over Star Wars, I was like, oh boy, here we go. We're gonna have, they're gonna really homogenize it and just make it into something that it's not. And no, they really are paying attention to what the fans, not only just what the fans want, but what actually fits within the context of each story. So with the fates of these characters, they all die. I mean, I went in there kind of suspecting that a few of the characters would die. I actually thought that maybe Jin might somehow survive, and maybe there's some kind of in-universe reason for why we don't see her in the main saga. Maybe she's off somewhere else. But I have to give them credit for actually, making that decision and just sort of, going with it.
I I agree. I mean, I thought that one or two of these guys would survive, and we'd see them in episode, 7 and 8. An older Jin, or perhaps, Cassian. I don't know. I mean, like I thought at least, the Donnie Yen, the Chirrut Imwe. I thought he would survive. Like I thought he would end up being like this like Yoda-like Jedi. But no, man. I mean, we were wrong. I mean, I kind of I thought it was a ballsy move by Disney, like you said, and it worked, man. They gave the ultimate sacrifice to get those plans, and I think that's what made the film better in the end. Right?
Yeah, I think as fans, we all kind of wondered what the implications of what goes on in the main saga, what those implications are for, everyone else that lives in that universe. And this sort of gives us an idea of, what these, characters who are not part of the main saga, the sacrifices they have to make and the struggles they have to go through, and and fighting for this cause that they believe in. That was always kind of a curiosity for me, because when I watch something like Star Wars, you can't help but wonder, well, okay, the story, obviously the main saga focuses on the Skywalker family and Luke, and then you have the prequels with Anakin. You can't help but wonder, well, okay, well, what's it like living in that universe as someone who's not, part of an important part of that story? What do you go through? Or what if you're a rebel and you want to fight the Empire?
Right.
What kind of struggles you have to live through? And this sort of answers that question.
You sent me a link to a story. I forget who wrote it, and what publication it was in, but it spoke about like a lot of the footage that wasn't used in this film. I mean, if you look back to the teaser trailer, practically all of that footage wasn't in the movie. What was going on there?
This film went through a significant number of reshoots, and it just goes to show how much effort they had to put into just getting this right. So I give them, like I've been saying all along, I give them an incredible amount of credit. I mean, there's one shot that shows them on a beach, and and you see Jin holding the plans, like running, and obviously we don't see that scene in the movie because she goes from where the main bank, or the whatever, the library kind of, wherever they keep the files,
right,
to the top of the tower where the satellite dish is,
right.
So you don't see her trying to actually escape with the plans to get off the planet and get onto a starship, and that's what I think I was expecting going into that. But
yeah, I mean, even when she was up on that tower or bridge or whatever you want to call it, with the satellite, in the teaser trailer, there was a TIE fighter that was behind her, and then she was kind of like running away from, or walking towards it or something. Like, I was kind of stoked to see that. A lot of the dialogue we didn't see. A lot of the Forrest Whitaker dialogue that we did just wasn't in there. Like, what was going on?
A lot of that got cut. I mean, from my understanding and from the way the article kind of phrased, explained it, I think they were really struggling to make Jin a sympathetic character. I think maybe with the way they shot it originally, she came off a little bit too arrogant, and I think they wanted to kind of tone that down and sort of make her more sympathetic. Although I would have liked to have seen what they had planned for after that tower scene.
Yeah, and you know what? All that stuff is going to be on the Blu-ray.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
So before I let you go, I have to ask you the question: The Force Awakens or Rogue One? That's a really hard question to ask.
For me, it's easy. I actually think Rogue One was slightly better. I mean, I rewatched Force Awakens recently too, just because I hadn't seen it in a while. And I'd have to say, even though Force Awakens continues the saga, and it was something that we were waiting for for a very long time. I mean, for the longest time, George Lucas was saying that there's never going to be an episode 7, and we want. I mean, for the longest time, we have wanted that film, and it entertained me. I'm not trying to put it down, but I think Rogue One, as a self-contained story within the Star Wars universe, apart from the main saga, this had everything you could expect. I mean, this has everything I've wanted in a Star Wars movie, even though it doesn't have the main characters that we.
That's a really good point, because I left this film feeling a lot better than I did when I left the Force Awakens. Even though the Force Awakens, it was great to see Chewie and Han Solo and everyone back. This film just gave us so many great scenes. And if only just for that one Darth Vader scene, I mean, I would have to choose Rogue One. Now, that said, the next film in the saga, I have a feeling that is going to be on the level of Empire. I just have a feeling. I do have a feeling.
Yeah, I'm really psyched to see what they're going to do next, and hopefully we'll get some sort of. I'm sure we will. We'll get some sort of explanation about Rey's origins and stuff, and that might actually, like it did with Empire, it sort of makes you appreciate the series as a whole, and maybe Episode 8 will after we watch that, we'll appreciate Force Awakens even more.
Sure.
Because the sequel sort of, if it does its job, it sort of complements the film that came before it, and sort of, adds to what it adds another layer of appreciation for the prior film.
Sure. All right. Well, Jack, where can people find you online?
On Twitter at Jack Lugo 1.
And your blog?
If you do a Google search, I don't have the best.
Just Google Jack Lugo blog, you'll find it, right?
Yeah. You'll find the blog that way.
And are you going to be on any future podcasts like James Bond or anything like that?
Well, I do some website work for James Bond Radio. I've written some book reviews and stuff for James Bond Radio, which is a really cool James Bond podcast. And I mean, a while back ago, I did sort of a piece on should they explore an extended universe for James Bond, if it's done correctly, like they're doing this, I mean, I don't see why not. But obviously, there's always the fear that they won't do it the right way.
Right.
So yeah, you can find me there as well.
All right, cool. Jack, as usual, it has been a pleasure chatting, and hopefully, you never know. Maybe next in the next upcoming year or so, we'll chat James Bond officially on one of these episodes.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Cool. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Enjoyed this episode of the Pop Culture Juke Joint? Then don't forget to tip the barkeep by subscribing and reviewing us on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, for some sizzling noir tales, head on over to Amazon to check out Anthony's hard-boiled fiction, available in print, digital, and audiobook formats. On social media, follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Venutolo, or like his page on Facebook. For everything else, please visit his webpage at www.anthonyvenutolo.com. We'll see you next week.